friend. Welcome back to Bible Tract Echoes. I'm Micah McCurry, your host. Thank you so very much for taking your time and joining me once again today. I warned you yesterday, going to be a little different this week. Of course, I realize for many of you, you're listening on Christmas Eve, and you're expecting, Brother Micah, you're going to read Luke chapter 2, right? No, I'm in 1 Kings 19. It's a little different this Christmas week. We're talking about insecurity. I realize probably many other broadcasts you'll listen to will be on the theme and subject of Christmas. And is there a better subject to talk about? I mean, think about it. The twinkling lights, angels singing, the shepherds looking for baby Jesus. I mean, it's just awesome, right? The red and green, the chocolates, the food, the apple cider, the hot chocolate. I mean, it can't be beat. But then we go home after the holidays. You know what it's like the day after your best day? Well, Elijah found out. 1 Kings 19, the Bible tells us about Elijah the day after the best day. You see, in 1 Kings 17, he brought a boy, with God's power, brought a boy back from the dead. I mean, think about that. You want to talk about a good day. 1 Kings 18, the very next chapter. Elijah faces off against hundreds of prophets of Baal, these false priests, these worshipers of a grisly, wicked, false god. And what does he do? With God's power, I'm not putting any laurels on Elijah that don't belong. What did he do? He won. He won in a resounding fashion. God allowed fire, a pillar of fire, to fall from heaven and burn up the entirety of the sacrifice. I mean, think of it. Imagine you were there. That would be awe-inspiring. That would be literally awesome. Then, to cap it off, God allows him to kill all the prophets of Baal. I mean, this scourge, this spiritual blot, stain on the people of Israel gets removed. One fell swoop. He is riding high. And then what happens? 1 Kings 19. See, here is the day after your best day. You know what it's like? You have revival services at your church, at a missions conference, just at a good Sunday, just a blessing, just at a good day. Then the next day comes and it feels like you got punched in the throat. That's where Elijah's at. You see, 1 Kings 19, Ahab, the king, wicked king at the time, for most of his time actually, Ahab told Jezebel, his wicked witch of a wife, all that Elijah had done. 1 Kings 19:1, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, can you imagine in this day and age, she would have posted it on Facebook. She said, Elijah, if you're reading this, well, in this day and age, they didn't have that. So she sent a messenger saying, so let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. Meaning, Elijah, you killed my priests, I'm going to kill you. 24 hours, start the clock. What happens? Oh, Elijah, he stands up strong with steel in his spine. No. What are we talking about on Christmas Eve? We're talking about insecurity. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun with the Christmas music, isn't it? But what about December 26th? What about the day after? The holiday hangover, the food coma is past. December 27th, 28th. You're on your 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th day of eating Christmas turkey, and you're tired of it. Your wife starts pitching stuff in the trash because it's getting too old, and no one's eating the green bean casserole. I'm going to throw it away. But then worse, you get to January 1st. Maybe, if you're like me, you've gained a couple pounds over the Thanksgiving, Christmas holidays, and January 1st, we're going to take care of this thing. January 1st comes and goes. 2nd, 3rd, and get to about the 13th or 14th, and you realize this year isn't shaping up to be any different than last year. The day after the good day. What happens? If you're anything like me, if you're anything like humanity, if you're anything like Elijah, you deal with some insecurity. I told you yesterday, I told you that every time I go to sit down and begin this broadcast, it gets me. It sneaks up. Takes a little bit. Sometimes I can bull right through it, manhandle it. But there hasn't been a broadcast, especially a week of broadcasts. Monday's the worst, but there's never been a broadcast that I can recall that there hasn't been a moment of, am I really worthy of doing this? 110 radio stations put me out over the airwaves Monday through Friday for 15 minutes, and then the spiral gets worse. Can I be honest with you? Can I be transparent, authentic? We all deal with it. The most boisterous of us. Sometimes it can just be a cover for insecurity. And this Christmas week, I want to take the bull by the horns. I want to talk about him. Today, I want to speak about some problematic symptoms of insecurity. What do we see in 1 Kings 19? What does Elijah do? Verse number 3, and when he saw that, he arose and went for his life. What does he do? He insulates himself. He runs from the problem. What does insulation do? It keeps things, if you that roll in insulation, a blown in insulation. You know, we have a music studio here in our building, and we get to record a few things here and there. If you missed our latest Goodly Heritage album titled Walk On, that came out, that was recorded right here in Odell, Illinois, and we have special walls between the control room and the live room. And the walls, that we didn't go over the top with them, but the pre-existing building, it was already a 2x6 wall. So it made it a little thicker. It was fully insulated. It had plywood, and then we put drywall on top of that. And we did a few other things, like the way we routed the wires in between, because you got to have wires to run the microphones and all that type of stuff, the XLR cables, the power cables, all that type of stuff. The way we routed those, we did it in such a way that we wouldn't mess up, we wouldn't reduce as little as possible the insulation. Why? Because the sound on one side needs to stay there, and the sound on the other side needs to stay there. It's to a place where we could be talking full voice in the control room, and because of the insulation, you cannot hear what's being said on the other side of the wall. It's insulated. What does it keep? It keeps sound. It keeps the knowledge of what's going on. It keeps heat, hot or cold. It keeps temperature at bay. If you put your hand on the outside of your refrigerator, it's going to feel like the ambient temperature in your kitchen as a general rule, because the door of your refrigerator has a bunch of insulation in it, because it wants to keep the cold on the inside. And it wants to keep the ambient, the 72 degrees you keep your house, it keeps that on the outside so that the things on the inside don't spoil at room temperature. What do we do when we're insecure? We do what Elijah did. We insulate ourselves and we push things away. What do? We do what Moses did. I'm not going to take the time to go through all the scriptures, but Moses, at different times in his life, multiple times actually, but especially when he hit that rock twice when he wasn't supposed to, remember that? He wasn't quite sure what he was supposed to do. He made a snap decision. He made an assumption. That's never a good idea. And what did he do? Here's another symptom of insecurity: irritation. You ever known someone that got irritable when they were insecure? You see, Elijah does the exact same thing. He gets angry. Verse number 4, and then verse number 10, I have been very jealous for the Lord God of hosts. He's talking to God himself, and he's irritable. What else happens? What are some other symptoms of insecurity? And maybe, just maybe, you can identify in your life. I can identify in mine. I know that. The world, it tells us, I think it's HALT, HHALT. If you're hurt, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, not a good time to make a decision. Speaking of decision, what else do? We get indecisive. We don't want to. Sometimes we go irritable and we just start making decisions even if they aren't smart. We smack a rock twice like Moses did. But on the other end of the spectrum, we can withdraw, insulate ourselves, and say, I don't want to. I've done that. I know for a fact I've done that. You're dealing with something at work. You're dealing with something in your family. You're dealing with something, some interpersonal issue, and you don't want to make a decision because you're afraid it's going to be the wrong one. And what do? We don't decide anything. And what is it? Often it's insecurity. Not all the time. I'm not saying every time someone's irritable, it's because they're insecure. But you know as well as I, you can do the math with yourself. Be honest. Be honest. You know what it's like. What's another symptom? Well, think about David. Do you remember when it was a time when kings went to war. Where was David? He was on the balcony. He knew where he should have been. I wonder if part of his immorality was insecurity. I'm not gonna accuse you. I'll speak for myself. Sometimes you try to fill a hole with all the wrong things. Sometimes it's irritation, sometimes it's insulation, sometimes it's indecision, sometimes it's just, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Think the wrong thought, do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, look at the wrong thing. And you know where it comes from sometimes? Oftentimes, we're insecure because we know we're not doing the right thing. We're going to continue this, and we're not just going to leave you with problems and symptoms. We're going to look at some solutions, both public and private, tomorrow on the broadcast. Have a great day for His glory. We'll talk to you soon. God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to Bible Tract Echoes, the radio ministry of Bible Tracts Incorporated. Want to see our gospel tracts and other resources? Visit us online at BibleTractsInc.org. That's BibleTractsInc.org. Or follow us on social media to learn how you can partner with this ministry. Thanks again for listening. May the Lord richly bless you as you live for Him.